G'day, ZiggyD here, back in Heroes of the Storm. Recently, Blizzard held a developer AMA on the Heroes of the Storm subreddit with 4 of the developers. There were developers from talent design, hero design, art and online features, and UI developers as well. So we got a fair bit of interesting comments, but in this video I'm just going to go over some of the ones that I think are the most interesting, that I think you guys will be the most interested in. It's just sort of a bit of a summary for you guys, because it gives some insight into where things are headed in terms of hero balance, and a little bit of insight into the design of the game moving forwards. So the first sort of category is general gameplay balance. One of the interesting questions that was asked here was, why did the developers opt for a lower movement speed of heroes relative to other MOBAs? Now, I haven't played too many other MOBAs. I played a bit of League of Legends, I played a fair bit of Dota 1, not much Dota 2, and I played a little bit of Smite and stuff like that. And it does seem like, although it's a faster paced game overall, the heroes do feel a little bit slower moving. So their answer to this was, the decision to add mounts to the game had a lot to do with the movement to speed decisions they made for heroes specifically. So for those of you guys who are less familiar, I don't think many other MOBAs have this style of mount system in the game. And this means that you have some interesting decisions to make in combat, whether you mount up or not, and this gives you a move speed boost, mobility, but there is, a short cooldown on it, so it's something you have to use intelligently, and overall it's a feature I like quite a bit. So moving on with the question, the developers said, it's true that they could have blown up map sizes and then increased the hero speed, but they really wanted to keep map sizes relatively small because they wanted to keep the game time short, and in general smaller maps help with that. So it sounds a bit like they made the decision to have heroes move a little bit slower, make it a little bit trickier to dodge things sometimes, to keep people in combat and keep the maps smaller. So it sounds like through their testing they've found that a smaller map with slower hero move speeds, and then the ability to mount when you do need sort of longer range mobility, leads to faster games. And I have, obviously overall, the game is typically faster than the other MOBAs, so I guess it seems to be working. But it's an interesting sort of design decision there. So the next one was, why did you, the developers, for the most part, opt for similar cast range of abilities as the auto attack range? So you guys have probably noticed that a lot of the abilities have, not very long range. You can get some range increasing talents on some abilities, but a lot of them are just about auto attack range or slightly longer. So the question continues, doesn't that just create a lower reward for dodging skill shots when attempting to escape? Now, the developers responded that it does indeed depend on the ability. Obviously, some are AoE, some are wider, some are longer. But they said, I think the reward for dodging skill shots is based on the power of the shot being fired, if it's a stun or a big damage, for example, rather than the length the missile travels. Concerning cast ranges in general, we typically don't want to make the cast ranges of abilities bigger than the visible area on screen, because then player has to scroll around to aim. Of course, we're free to break the rule, like with Tyranda's W ability, which can go across the map. It's just a general guideline. Now, overall, I have to say I agree with this design decision. Obviously, you still are rewarded for dodging skill shots, and skill shots are still skill shots. Having a longer range doesn't make skill shots, any, harder. In fact, I would say it probably would make them easier in some cases. But, having the occasional cross-map skill shots like Tyranda's one is pretty cool. But for the most part, I like the idea that as a ranged character, which have an inherent advantage against melee characters in particular, that they can continue poke and stay out of range of their melee abilities, have to commit more to be able to get those skill shots off. And a skill shot should require, quite a bit of skill, and having to move in close into, the just outside of the danger range of a melee character, or inside of auto attack range of a ranged character, means that you need to do that more skillfully. Not just the aim of the skill shot, but also when to use the skill shot, when to commit to using a skill shot. So overall, I like the design of this, and it feels good in game, I think. So it's interesting to hear some of the developer insight as to why that is the case. So the next section, there was a few questions about Jaina, and a few bits of insight about Jaina, which is the new hero. I've been playing tons of her. You can see her in the background footage for this video. She's a lot of fun. I feel like she's probably one of the best design heroes that they've released so far, right off the bat. All of the talent design is fantastic. So the developer comments on Jaina were that so far, Jaina seems to be about in line with their expectations. So this was in regards to how they expected her to perform and how well she's performing. They continued, obviously it's only been a few days, so we don't have a ton of data yet. As more time passes, we'll have more data which will allow us to better evaluate her and balance her talent choices. Also, we're looking forward to seeing how Jaina is used in competitive play. I am too. I'm curious because she feels really strong. Like, she has really strong potential. The skill combos can be really, really powerful when used correctly, but it does seem like she has a relatively high skill cap, so I am also very interested in seeing how she plays out in competitive play. I can't wait to see, like, the next tournament or something that makes use of her. So the next question was about Jaina's improved Ice Block, which essentially is an improved generic talent. So there's improved block, the generic talent, but Jaina has a kind of a customized version of that because she's a Frost Mage. She has improved Ice Block, and it does function differently. What Jaina's improved Ice Block does puts her in an Icy Prism for 3 seconds, blocking all damage, and then at the end it chills enemies around her. The idea is that you can then follow up with some powerful attacks and do additional damage. So a well-timed improved Ice Block can prevent an ult from killing you, it can block an ability, or you can just use it when you're in trouble to buy time for your allies to get to you, and you can use it as a Frost and then follow up and get a quick kill. So it can be a nice way to turn around a particularly nasty fight that's not going your way. So the developer responds to the question of Jaina's improved Ice Block and whether there's something we might see more of. As Jaina is a Frost Mage, Ice Block seems like a key talent we could use to make her feel unique. We're not looking to replace every generic talent, as we feel there's value in having a mixture of generic and unique content. So not every hero is going to have their generic talents turned into customized versions for them. But they did say, expect to see more of this in the future, however. As we do our updates, we're always looking for generic talents that we could make unique to our hero. This is awesome. Like, I love that they made this generic talent much more interesting for Jaina and changed it much more in line with her hero. Again, lending to the fact that I think Jaina's fantastically designed. So I hope we do see a lot more of that in the future with future heroes, and maybe some additions to some of the older heroes. I think some of the generic talents on the older heroes could be changed over to be in line with their theme. Now the next question was, Jaina only has 4 talents per tier, but all of them for the most part are viable and well designed. We continue this as a less is more approach. So the developers to this said, yes, it's something we've been talking a lot about recently. We think Jaina is in a pretty good spot with her talents and are aiming for something similar in all of our characters. I'll tell you what, personally, myself, if we have 4 decisions which are all pretty good, and on Jaina, that's for the most part the case. Like, depending on the kind of the playstyle you're trying to do, usually there's like 2-3 options that are a pretty good option, and none of them are clear cut right at the beginning. So the designs there pretty good, and hell, if it's 4 good talents versus 5 and only one of them's good, then I'll take the 4 good talents, please. Now, next interesting point was about a different hero, asking about Muradin balance. Now, Muradin I played recently for the first time, and I was like, holy crap, this guy's so fun. He's such a fun, entertaining hero to play. But each time I play him, and I'm like, I'm having a blast. I'm even usually playing quite well as him. But people are telling me, why are you playing Muradin? He's such a bad hero. He's ranked at like bottom tier. And I was like, well, it seems so fun though. But apparently it just doesn't quite stack up in competitive play, and Blizzard do acknowledge this. They said, we love Muradin, but we feel like he's overshadowed by other warriors at the moment. We recently tuned up his trait that provides his high sustainability. We're also looking at potentially making some balance tweaks with his mana tension and usability of Haymaker. I believe the balance guys are also looking at the Dwarf Toss ability and potentially tuning this up slightly, and they said when? Soon, trademarked of course. So looking forward to that. I mean, as I said, I find Muradin really fun, and if he's going to get a little more powerful, then he's probably going to get even more fun, so I'm looking forward to that for sure. Now the next question was about hero balance in general, and it was, which heroes do you see as needing a substantial revamp before we reach beta? And the insights from the developers here were particularly interesting. They said, we're planning reworks for a number of live heroes, including Abathur and Lily. I think quite a few people expected this. For Abathur, we really wanted to introduce another heroic ability, so we've been trying to figure out what would best fit his playstyle, or if there is a new build we wanted to create for him. For Lily, we wanted to bring her up to par with some of our stronger support characters. What we're testing internally right now for includes quite a few new talents, but also increasing her healing abilities quite a bit. We plan to update many heroes over time. Some of the heroes we're currently testing internally that are different from live include Uther and Raina, among others. We thought that it was important to do a Raina update sooner than later, as this is the first hero players are introduced to during the tutorial. So all pretty interesting stuff there. They actually talked a little bit further about Abathur in another response, saying that they have some pretty big changes and additions to him planned, and maybe even a new ult as well. So it'll be interesting to see what they come up with Abathur. Obviously Abathur is ranked very highly at the moment. A good Abathur can really make a huge difference in a game, and he's ranked as kind of his own special tier for that reason in a lot of people's rankings. Lily is universally pretty panned, I think, but I think that she's like mechanically a strong hero, just not quite there. So it'll be cool to see her get a little bit stronger, I think, because I think she'll be pretty popular, and those AoE heals could be really nice. Now, the final thing I wanted to go over was Resurgence. Someone asked about, Resurgence and some of the level 20 talents. They said in general that the level 20 talents, they're going to be revamping a little bit because a lot of the time people are not choosing the ult abilities, so they're going to be redesigning some of those to make them a little bit more compelling and interesting. But in particular, they talked about Resurgence, and they said that they recently made the change that increased the cooldown of Resurgence from 120 to 180 seconds, and they said it feels like this brings it closer in line with other powers at this tier. Internally, we're currently looking at all of the generic level 20s to see which ones are working and which ones aren't. As part of this testing, we're looking at the possibility of actually removing Resurgence and seeing how this impacts gameplay. Now, Resurgence, I feel like, is probably a good candidate to actually just get the chop. The whole kind of point of Heroes is for it to be faster, more action-oriented, shorter games. And something like Resurgence, I think, is often just a better choice than a lot of the ults and stuff like that. And obviously the ults could be improved a bit, but Resurgence kind of just artificially lengthens the game in some areas and makes it a little bit less interesting, I think. So I personally, I don't know how let me know how you guys feel, but I personally wouldn't mind if they just removed Resurgence. It doesn't seem like a particularly fun mechanic. I mean, it's nice if you're playing like a tank or something, you get axed and you can get right back in and get straight back to tanking, or if you're playing squishy assassin and you get killed and you get right back in there. I mean, it feels alright, but I don't think it's a particularly interesting mechanic, and I'd love to see other more interesting options there at level 20, trying to turn the game with more skill-based things or things that make your ult a little bit more flashy and impressive. I'd like to see more of that happening, so I wouldn't mind at all if Resurgence was removed. Someone also asked about the Mules as well, and whether they'd be removed because they're also artificially lengthening game time in relation to this. And they said that they actually don't think they'll ever remove Mules. I think it's they're currently in a pretty good position. They're not really looking to rebalance them at all and the reason for this was that it's so easy to snipe them. They are viable to counterplay. So although Mules can heal the buildings and make the game last a little bit longer, and good Mule play will make a game last longer, a good opposition will snipe and counter that play by killing the Mule. So that's an interesting one. I think certainly that's legit for professional level play. However, in a lot of pickup games and in just in more casual games, Mules are going to lengthen the game time because random uncoordinated groups are generally not going to be as coordinated enough to, pay attention and look out for and snipe Mules and think about where Mules might be being used and counterplay them. So I think it's still going to have the effect of increasing the game time in those more casual games, but maybe those things will be kind of, solved elsewhere instead of with Mules. Now, this is kind of an interesting extra point here, is in the recent patch, they seemingly increased the shields on the core, which is that was an undocumented change. They did say that sometimes changes just get through on, they just get left out of the patch notes accidentally. It happens. So fair enough. It was an undocumented change, and it does seem like games are a lot longer now. I'd be curious to know if you guys have had this experience as well, whether since the patch, games seem a lot longer to you guys, but I feel like I'm getting a lot of games that are 5 minutes longer, or maybe even more than they could be, and especially those close, really back and forth games where the shields have a bit of time to regenerate on the core, and it's you're not really able to work it down, and you can get in, just do a little bit of damage, but you're only just getting the shields. I feel like it's really lengthening those games out, so that's a weird decision, keeping in mind their core design, goal of having shorter games, more action-packed games. I mean, I kind of enjoy that end game where it's very back and forth, but when I'm regularly getting into 30-minute games in Heroes, it feels a little bit weird, because I like the idea that Heroes is a 15 to 25-minute game. So anyway, I'd be interested to know what you guys thought. Hopefully you enjoyed this insight and summary of the developer Q&A. I'll link in the description the full Q&A, the full AMA, if you guys want to check it out. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.